Hi all, welcome to the first in a series of PhUSE webinars leading off this year. As a surprise, coming into the new year, we're having a few technical issues in getting folks up and running on our webinar today. But we have our first three presenters, so hopefully we'll work out the kinks as we move through the webinar today. Most of the focus of the webinar today is to give people an update on some of the projects going on with CSS, an update on PhUSE plans for 2017, and also give an update on the conference coming up in March, the annual Computational Science Symposium. So to quickly go over the agenda for the day, I'll just give a few introductory remarks regarding the conference, the upcoming Computational Science Symposium. Then Jane Lozano is going to join us from the Optimizing Data Standards group and talk a little bit about the Study Data Standardization Plan. We'll then have Chris Hurley from our PhUSE Board of Directors provide an overview of the U.S. single-day events coming up in 2017. We'll then, hopefully, if we get people online correctly, we will have Scott Bahlavooni do an overview of a Linkathon. This is an exciting new event coming up at the Computational Science Symposium in March. About prototyping, basically taking the project that they've been working on, which is prototyping alternatives to the SAS version 5 transport, and actually looking at doing some prototyping and some linking of different options. And then Crystal Allard from the FDA will give an update on some of the review activities that are happening around the PhUSE deliverables. There's a lot of activities in that. So let me just remind, and I say this every time, but we always have a few new people on our webinars. This is a mission of the Computational Science Collaboration, which is to provide an open and transparent and collaborative forum in a non-competitive environment. I won't read the rest of that, you can read that, but the idea here is that we're coming together as academia, regulators, industry, and technology, and really sharing ideas and working on the issues that we have in making getting products to market faster. We have 5 working groups that all revolve around our Computational Science Steering Committee. You can see those there. I won't go over those in detail, but those are our 5 groups, and within each of those groups, there are different projects that people are volunteering for and working on. Anywhere from a couple of projects in a working group to 8 or 9 projects within that working group. So there's a lot of activity and a lot of great work being done across all our volunteers. We do have a couple of areas where you can get information on the PhUSE website. You can get the information about a dashboard which gives you an overview of all the active projects. We then have a catalog of all our working group deliverables, which are also out on the website. These are in the process of being updated. As you might have noticed, we had a new website rollout in the end of December, the PhUSE website. So we're working on updating all this information and putting it in a consumable format so everybody can find all this information and move forward with it. We then have a number of working groups that have produced deliverables that are under review. So those are out there as well. So a little bit about the Computational Science Symposium. It will happen March 19th to 21st of this year, just coming up in a little over 2 months. Some of the meeting highlights: we'll have the opening session on Sunday evening at 5 o'clock is when the event will begin. We'll have a Linkathon that Sunday evening. Again, Scott will talk a little bit more detail about that later on. And then an FDA session both on that Monday, where they'll provide us some information, as well as a panel on that Tuesday afternoon. We only have 300 spots available, as always, in this conference with the facility and the working groups, and we've already got 100 registered. So I strongly suggest people, if they're planning to attend, to register soon. A couple of important dates around the symposium. In 2 days, this Friday, all poster abstracts are due, so the deadline is the end of this week. I'd strongly suggest people put a poster in, share what your company is doing in these areas of computational science. You also get a discount. If you submit an abstract and it's accepted, you have a discount for attending the event. Last year we had over 30 posters, and they were all exceptional and provide a lot of great information for discussion and networking. On the 23rd of January, we'll notify everyone of their poster acceptance. And January the 27th, which is the end of the month, is when our early bird registration ends. So again, get that registration in. As it happened last year, we expect this to sell out. So please register before that happens. Registration closes on March the 13th, and then March 19th, our conference opening session happens. So as I mentioned before, we'll open on Sunday evening with an opening session at 5 p.m. We'll then have a workshop after that opening session. This is a workshop that is closed. It's to, I believe, we already have our max in this workshop. We are going to be doing hands-on activities with this workshop, so we had to limit our capacity on that. But it will be focused on that Linkathon, as I mentioned before, and also provide more introduction to link data. On Monday, we'll have the FDA Insights, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. A working group breakout sessions, as we normally do, and we'll have our poster session in the afternoon, as well as a workshop on Monday evening around code sharing. One thing I forgot to mention on the Monday, the FDA Insights, it's really a view into how the FDA goes about doing their work and reviewing the data that we submit to them. So I think it's going to be a very informative session, and will really give us a glimpse into some of those details and insight. On Tuesday, we'll have more working group breakout sessions, and then we'll have an industry panel at the end of the day talking about the impact of the guidance on submissions. As we all know, last month, December, is when the guidance became enforceable. And so there's a lot of conversations and questions about that as we move forward. And we'll wrap up around 4 p.m. on Tuesday. So again, I'll go back to our talks for today. At this moment, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Jane Lozano, who's going to talk within the Optimizing Data Standards group about the Data Standardization Plan. So let me go ahead and pass that on to you, Jane, and then you will be passing it on to Chris when you are complete.
All right, thank you.
Hopefully that's coming to you.
Yes. Yes,
and we can see your screen and we can hear you.
Okay, so I will try to, I need to be able to make it bigger, or maybe not. Welcome everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to talk about one of the projects that is within the Optimizing the Use of Data Standards working group. I am one of the co-leads of this working group. DJ Chatre is the other co-lead, and I will be giving you an update on the Study Data Standardization Plan. This is referenced, it is described in binding guidance. More details are given in the Technical Conformance Guide. And when I went to my first PhUSE is when we first started talking about this project, and I volunteered for it because I wanted to get involved. Worked with a variety of people, great group of people, on putting together a template, completion guidelines, example documents, and then also a sponsor implementation plan to help those that are creating a study data standardization plan on how to implement it within their organization. That being said, we have a new FDA champion, Nee Beasley. Crystal, I spoke with Crystal and Nee this past Monday, and this should follow along with what Crystal will be saying in a few minutes. There was an FDA FR Notice for intent to review issued last year. Very thankful for that, excited that we are getting close to having a full set of deliverables. The review ended on Monday, and from my understanding and based on my conversation with Crystal and me, that the average time is about 2 months for FDA to collate their responses and meet internally prior to sharing with the PhUSE project team. What I would like to do then at PhUSE is to have a session with my project team to discuss these comments. I think it fits really along nicely with the timeline of when we're going to meet in March and then when this review ended. There are deliverables, however. There is a template. It is available out on the PhUSE Wiki. along with all the minutes from our project team meetings. If you're interested in how we got to what we did, I have all the meeting minutes out on the wiki. I do know that there is a section for the non-clinical in which the studies are listed that is going to probably change based on a meeting last year with FDA, and one of my colleagues at Lilly has indicated to me that there's probably some information in the non-clinical section that they would like to see different, which is fine. I would like to see what those changes are, though, prior to CSS so that we can have that already done. I have a meeting scheduled on the 31st of January with my project team to talk about all the comments that have been received. Within Lilly, we have sent in an SDSP as a standalone document, and as we've gone through this and the other members of the project team, as they have implemented this, of course there's comments that come along with that, clarifications that need to be made to the completion guidelines, questions asked that we didn't think of, that has occurred while creating a standardization plan. My goal is to get through all those comments prior to CSS so that we can then address FDA comments and then get to a point where, as I said, we can make this a deliverable and it will go out on the wiki where the study data reviewer's guide is currently and the analysis data reviewer's guide. And that is my update.
Excellent.
All right.
Okay, thanks, Jane. And
Right.
one thing I forgot to mention earlier on is if you have questions, please post those in the chat of the web meeting, and we will gather those together and answer any questions at the end of the the webinar. So, actually, Jane, if I could switch around, I'm going to switch the agenda around a little bit because we did get our other folks back online.
Okay.
So, could you actually hand it off to Scott
Sure.
Bahlavooni? And we're gonna actually have him go next.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Scott, putting you on the spot here, but I wanted to go back to the original agenda.
All right.
Okay,
Can you hear me okay, Chris?
Yes, I can hear you fine, and hopefully your presentation will be coming. And Scott will be talking about a neat opportunity that we're going to be partaking in at the event in March. So let's make sure you can present.
Just let me know when the presenter rights are coming over.
Okay.
There we go.
I made you a presenter, so
Okay,
you should be able to.
Perfect. So do you...
There we go.
We
Yep,
see
I
your
see
slides and we hear you, so I will go on mute and let you take it.
So do you see the large slide, or do you see the notes?
I see the notes.
The note.
Okay, let me just swap the screen, and then we should be good to go. So now you can see the full slide. Is that correct?
We're waiting to see if it's rendering. It looks like it's still the slide deck.
Okay, well, let me just, sorry about the folks on the line with the technical difficulties. We'll get this sorted out. All right, so now let's see if we have the slide in presentation mode. So there we should be okay, correct?
Now I'm seeing a black screen.
Oh boy, it's been one of those mornings.
There we go. Okay, no, there we go.
Okay,
I see the
perfect.
slides. I'll interrupt
Awesome.
you if we see any problems.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Sorry about the technical difficulties for folks on the line. I know that can be a little frustrating during a web meeting. So again, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to present. And as Chris mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit about some sessions that this newly reframed working group Linked Data and Graph Databases will be hosting during the 2017 CSS. So we're hosting what we're calling a Linkathon, where we're going to be actually prototyping and doing hands-on work, prototyping alternatives to the SAS version 5 transport. So I'll give you a little bit of a background to both the working group as well as this sort of alternative to SAS version 5 transport, and then talk a little bit to what this Linkathon is actually going to be. So linked what? Linked Data and Graph Database Working Group. It sounds like quite a bit of a mouthful. Well, it actually was an evolution from the Semantic Technologies Working Group. So as many of you know who have probably been on these calls before, the Semantic Technologies Working Group was a working group that was actually spun out of the a project actually in the Emerging Trends and Technologies Working Group. In this Semantic Technologies Working Group, we actually did a lot of good work. There were a lot of deliverables that came out of that working group, including a representation of the CDISC foundational standards, SDTM, ADAM, control terminology, CDASH, in RDF, which is the W3C's, one of the W3C semantic standards. There was a very good white paper on clinical program design. There was a representation of some regulatory guidances in RDF. There was a draft model for a protocol time and event schedule that came out of the Semantic Technologies Working Group. So there was a lot of work that was done, but we tried in that working group to actually focus on some of the business propositions for why industry and regulatory agencies would want to use this technology. And we also tried to focus on some education opportunities around the use of semantic technologies. Tim Williams, who's one of the co-leads, as well as one of his colleagues in one of the semantic technologies projects, have hosted introductory workshops to semantic technologies at both the CSS in the US, the EU CSS, as well as the PhUSE annual conference. But again, one of the challenges I think that we found with the Semantic Technologies Working Group is, again, it was focused a lot on deliverables instead of business proposition, as well as is really focused on the use of the W3 semantic standards. So what we've done is we're actually sort of opening that working group up, if you will, to other graph technologies, which is hence the rename to linked data and graph databases. So in addition to focusing on or looking at other technologies in the graph database space, we'll also be kind of refocusing on providing more education around the use of linked data, just what it is, what resources are available to folks not only in pharma, but across industry or across other spaces as well. So we'll focus on the education piece, the business proposition piece, as well as continuing to deliver on products. We have a new project that's kicked off within the linked data and graph databases working group to actually represent SDTM data in RDF. So in the previous working group, the Semantic Technologies Working Group, we just represented the metadata in RDF, and now we're actually taking that to the next level, if you will, and actually taking SDTM data and representing that in RDF. So as we move forward with this working group, we're going to, again, be looking for other opportunities to deliver on products, but also opportunities to educate the industry and regulatory agencies about why moving out of rows and columns is important, why we need to look at future database technologies and not be stuck back in the Excel or SAS Stone Age, if you will. So if we think about SAS, there was a project in the Emerging Trends and Technologies Working Group looking at alternatives to the SAS version 5 transport. And this project was initiated at an FDA request to evaluate alternatives to SAS version 5. So as you may know, maybe 3 or 4 years ago now, I tend to lose track of time, there was an FDA open meeting where they started exploring alternatives to the SAS transport format, and out of that came an FDA pilot to evaluate the CDISC dataset XML representation for providing data as part of a submission, and the FDA produced a report on that. And so this alternative transport format project sort of came out of that to allow or to, as a desire to look at other formats beyond just dataset XML that may be of use for providing data to the FDA, perhaps as well as providing it to other regulatory agencies. So this PhUSE project was put together in 2 phases. And the first phase of this alternative transport project was to identify evaluation criteria by which alternative transport formats could be evaluated, so whether the format would actually be suitable or not. And in phase 1 of the project, the project team developed a questionnaire, a rather robust questionnaire, to submit to industry and regulatory agency folks to see what are their most important needs with regards to a transport format, as well as what challenges they may be having with the actual content of the data that's being provided to regulatory agencies. They're used inside companies within the industry space, and challenges that they may be having around the actual content itself. Well, the project received results from that survey back and or have been collating it and processing it, or in the process of developing a white paper. So phase 2 of that project was always to actually prototype different alternatives to the SAS version 5 transport format, and that's where this 2017 CSS Linkathon is actually coming into play as part of the linked data and graph database working group. So typically a lot of the working group sessions are focused on the projects that are ongoing within each of the working groups. And for the linked data and graph database working group sessions at the 2017 CSS, there will be some projects that will meet, but the primary focus of our working group sessions are going to be this prototyping breakout. So we're actually going to do some hands-on prototyping where we'll take some submission data, so some SDTM data sets, some ATOM data sets, and defined at XML, and actually model that in different linked data technologies. Currently, we have on the docket, if you will, to actually model those entities using both RDF and Neo4j. So we'll look to you in the community if there's other technologies that you want to prototype the submission data sets as well as metadata in. We're open to other technologies. So perhaps if somebody wants to do a prototype in XML, we are definitely more than welcome to have those folks participate. But right now, we definitely have commitments to do this work in RDF as well as Neo4j, which is a property graph database. So again, what we're looking for there is actually just to take the submission data sets, model them in these different technologies over the day and a half of the working group breakout sessions, and at the end of those breakout sessions kind of compare our outcomes doing those modeling and against the criteria that were put forth by the alternative transport project to see how well these technologies actually handled the representation of the submission data. So you may be thinking, how do you get involved? So we want people that understand the business of creating CDISC data sets. So if you have no experience modeling data using linked database technologies, that's not a problem. We need people that do understand the business of representing clinical data in using CDISC standards. We want you to participate in these activities. So obviously we do want technologists, the people that can actually work with RDF, work with Neo4j, or that understand a different technology that they want to actually model these CDISC deliverables in. And we also want people that are just dreamers and nerds and innovators and influencers to get involved in this as well. You don't need to be an expert in the technology space, but you should have a desire to do things differently and recognize that there are challenges in the way that we work both within industry as well as regulators. And if you don't think that there are challenges, then I'm really not sure what to say to you. But if you have an interest in this, we want you to join the session. So how do you get involved? When you do register for the CSS, indicate that you'd like to participate in the linked data and graph databases working group. We'll get you involved in those breakout sessions. The plan right now during those working group breakouts is probably to, depending on how many people sign up, break out into groups of 3 to 5 people and just kind of have a go at working through representing the CDISC data sets as well as some of the metadata in these different graph technologies. And we in the working group, as working group co-leads, feel that this should be successful and hope to carry this forward, much like the other introductory sessions to activities like the PhUSE annual conference as well as the EU CSS. So we hope that you'll join us and make this activity a success. So that is the end of my presentation. As Chris mentioned, if you do have any questions, please enter them into the chat functionality of the GoToWebinar, and we will address those at the end of the session. Chris, would you want me to hand this off to Crystal?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. We'll hand it off to Crystal Allard, who's with the FDA, who's going to talk a little bit about the processes and areas that we're working with the FDA on deliverables. So, Crystal, are you there and can hear us and talk?
I am here.
Okay, we hear you. Now let's see if we can see your presentation when it comes across.
All right.
All successful. I can hear you and I can see it.
All right, so let's see if I can make it big. How's that?
It is now big. Excellent.
Sweet. Okay, so Chris asked me to give an update on FDA's review of PhUSE deliverables, and I'm not actually going to talk very much about the process of FDA review of PhUSE deliverables, so much as give an update on each of the ones that we are currently looking at, and we've even finished one, which was pretty exciting for us. So the very first one that we received at FDA was the Clinical Study Data Reviewers Guide. This is the SDRG. And our esteemed colleague Helena Spiglin has agreed to be the champion a number of years ago because she also helped develop the deliverable with the PhUSE group, she and Doug Warfield. So this is the very first FR Notice of Intent to Review that we ever published, and it was published in July of 2015, and just about a year later we finished our review of the SDRG, and this fall, we were really excited that the language within the Technical Conformance Guide was updated to reflect that FDA had reviewed the clinical SDRG and recommended its use. The next one that we took on was the Non-Clinical Study Data Reviewers Guide, and Patty Brundage, who is a toxicologist here at CEDAR, agreed to be the champion for this. She works very closely with Bob Dorsum, who is also a PhUSE participant. And we published that Notice of Intent to Review right before the CSS last year, so we were able to announce it at the Computational Science Symposium, which was pretty cool. And then we finished our review in October of this year, and our findings have been sent to the Technical Conformance Guide Committee. They're the folks who are responsible for updating the TCG. And we've requested that they update the language for the Non-Clinical Study Data Reviewers Guide similarly to the clinical version. When they did the update previously, they separated the language for the clinical and the non-clinical SDRGs because the original version of the TCG didn't actually identify two separate SDRGs. So they've changed the language to make it more clear that there are two different SDRGs, that they go in two different places, and that one of them has been reviewed by FDA. And we're hoping that that language for the non-clinical SDRG will also be updated this spring. So we are hoping to give an update at the March CSS on that. Also, we, as part of this process, as Jane mentioned, after the FR Notice of Intent to Review is published, there's a 60-day review period that allows for public comments. And after that review period is closed, we receive the public comments internally at FDA, and we reconcile each of them. We're not obligated under this type of an FR notice to respond to each comment the way that we would be with a guidance. But we do very carefully go through all of them with a group of folks here at FDA. Generally, it's a group of reviewers who would actually be receiving this type of a document. And we reconcile each of those comments, and then if there are comments that we think are relevant to perhaps an update to the SDRG, we have sent those back to PhUSE. So we did just recently send a set of minor update requests to the PhUSE group who worked on developing the SDRG. So for the study data standardization plan, we had a little bit of a change over the summer. Helen Seeley was originally our first champion for this, and we were very sad that she left FDA while I was on maternity leave over the summer, and so I came back and she was gone, which was really sad. So we recently have identified Nee Beasley as the champion, and Nee has been participating in the PhUSE scripts group for a while now, and she's really been very helpful and very involved, and we really appreciate her participation. So she's the champion for this SDSP. The FR Notice of Intent to Review was, as Jane mentioned, published on 11/8, so it was November 8th of last year, and the comment period ended, I think, yesterday or the day before, or today, somewhere right around now. And so it usually takes about a week for us to get those comments. I should be receiving the public comments in a week or so, and then Nee and I will work on bringing those comments to the review, group that Nee has identified. and we'll start working through reconciling each of those comments and then start working on developing. We actually write a report that includes all of the comments, all of the recommendations that we make based on the comments, and then our final recommendation for perhaps an update to the TCG, perhaps updates to the SDSP itself. And so we're hoping to finalize that report this spring, and we're also hoping to provide a better update at the March CSS. And the Analysis Data Reviewers Guide, this one's also really exciting because it's been published by PhUSE for a number of years. It's been out there sort of waiting for someone to pick it up, and this summer we identified a champion. Her name is Weia Zhang. She works very closely with Steve Wilson. She's a statistician in OB, which is also in my super office, so we work pretty closely together. And Weia's pretty fabulous. So right now we're in the process of working on publishing that FR Notice of Intent to Review. I can tell you the publishing process is initiated, and we're hoping to announce its publishing at the March CSS, so it should be ideally around that time that we give an update on that one. And the last one is the Legacy Data Conversion Plan, also known as the LDCP. We spoke to Jane about this a little bit. We know that there's a lot of work going on with this one. We were waiting a little bit for it to stabilize and for us to get some of the other deliverables, checked off our list before we picked this one up. What we're hoping to do is work on identifying an FDA champion in the next couple of months, and then give a better update at the March CSS on where we stand with perhaps starting an FR notice for this one. And that's it.
Okay, thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. It's good to get that update. And we'll actually be, the steering committee will be working with the PhUSE organization to actually add a page to our website that kind of gives an ongoing update of these types of things and sort of our interaction with FDA, so that we're transparent and informative about that information and what's being reviewed, so everyone can keep in touch and understand, and we'll send out notes about it as well. So appreciate that update, Crystal, and again, come to CSS. Myself and Crystal and others will be there and be able to share this information as well. I'm now going to hand it off to Chris Hurley, who's on our PhUSE Board of Directors and our U.S. Events Director, and we'll be providing you sort of an update of what's coming up in 2017 and potentially beyond.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Can you see my screen okay?
I can see your screen and I can hear you.
Excellent. Okay, so as Chris mentioned, I'm a volunteer for PhUSE. I'm on the board, and I'd just like to thank you all for allowing me to participate in this webinar. And let's see. I'll talk about PhUSE membership, and then I'll talk about some events that are coming up. So we are looking to be one global voice for our industry, a voice for our members, no hidden agendas. Annual membership has seen incredible growth over the past 5 years, and we are currently renewing membership for 2017. You can see on this slide such incredible growth. So we have group memberships available. So these we have rates on this screen, and they include a discount that's available until the end of this month, you guys. So there's a group plan for any sized organization. There are many benefits of membership. There's even a document available on the website elaborating our benefits in case you want to go to your manager and see if you can get a group membership. So please contact Frank Senk, he's our membership director, or the PhUSE office, or you can contact me, chris.hurley@phuse.edu, if you have any questions about membership. So I want to talk a little bit about the components of a single-day event, and I'd like to break these down, highlighting a recent event that we had in North Carolina on December 1st at Roe. So you can see it was a nice venue. It was a beautiful day, beautiful venue. The theme that we had was leveraging innovative technology to move pharma out of the Stone Age. This was really creative. But I just want to note that members don't come to see capabilities presentations. We come to share, learn, and network with each other. So If you are going to be a presenter or if you want to present, great, we'd love to have you. But just know that the presentation topics reflect the theme and they're non-competitive in nature, so no infomercials. Here we can see some volunteers. One of the speakers getting ready for a presentation. We have Jeff, Tanya, and one of the speakers here. Thank you, volunteers. The events don't happen without the contributions of our volunteers. Also, the sponsors. Sponsors are incredible. They support PhUSE. Without our sponsors, we can't have these events. And here we can see Russ Helms, CEO of Rowe, giving a keynote presentation at the event. So we have captivative attendees listening to one of the high-quality presentations at the event. For some venues, though, spaces might be limited, and this was one of them. So if you register for an event, registration is free for members. And later you find out for some reason you can't make it, please let us know because we may have people on a wait list. So we would appreciate that. So register early, and then later on if you find out, just let us know, and then so we can keep all the seats full. So at the very core of each single day event, we have the speakers. Now the speakers, they share their experience around the theme. In this event, the theme was leveraging innovative technology to move pharma out of the Stone Age. It was basically a challenge to our attendees and to the larger PhUSE community in general to leverage human and machine capabilities to harness the untapped potential of big data and interoperability. Key concepts of big data were discussed. Current good practice, the GXP guidelines, and years of standards development, including fast healthcare interoperability resources, may be utilized as a bridge to new data models. Semantics and linked data through the use of nodes and relationships, end-to-end traceability, and integrated metadata should allow us to pull the data we need instead of only getting what is pushed. Use of unstructured text analytics was discussed, along with electronic medical records, and graph data tools are possible because of the good work of PhUSE and data standards organizations, and the very nature of the data that we work with well-characterized attributes. Machine learning was discussed, where software trains itself to perform tasks by exposing multi-layered neural networks to vast amounts of data. Examples were given of initiatives that utilize all of these concepts, such as the cloud-based rapid biosurveillance system that supports collaboration between the FDA and other federal agencies to enhance monitoring of emerging health threats. Thought-provoking questions were also brought up, such as who owns the data? How will the different groups and processes work together? And in fact, what data is important? By sharing the knowledge and bringing to light the implications of that knowledge, our single-day event speakers fostered the discussion and learning that benefits our attendees and advances our mission of PhUSE. So I want to just go to just a visual to describe how this event, an analogy of this event. I hearken back to a profound statement by Charles H. Duell. He was the commissioner of the U.S. Patent Office in 1899. Chuck's most famous attributed utterance is that everything that can be invented has been invented. What a profound statement in 1899. Think back to those days, though, for a minute. On the left, you can see we have what was the basic transportation of the day. On the right, developed just a few years later, is the unique and stylish Mercedes coupe representing state-of-the-art transportation. Even the most innovative and creative minds were trapped by the current paradigm, and that's where pharma is today. Let's look at another visual. This is how most of us think of data, rows and columns. It's static data, it's pushed to regulatory agencies through electronic submissions, and as Scott pointed out, I think, the version 5 SAS transport files. Yuck. But when Skip presented, he showed us what was possible. Instead of pushing data, as we currently do, he showed us the possibilities of pushing massive amounts of data together. Dr. Skip Francis gave us a great example of breaking out of our current paradigm of how we envision adverse event data and putting the standards, visualization, data management, and analytics, and people to work together in support of real-time access and problem solving. This was a very thought-provoking event, and we appreciate all of the speakers' contributions and presentations. And I'd like to give special thanks to Chris Decker for coming up with the creative theme for the day. Well done, Chris. So let's switch over now. Let's look at some of the other events. So we looked at SDEs over time, and we can see a rapid growth. Again, we're held by the office and limited to about 20 events per year. We went to smaller venues in 2016, therefore the numbers were down a little bit. PhUSE likes to go where our members are, so sometimes we do that. But one of the benefits, the highest rated benefits of PhUSE membership is attendance at single-day events. So let's look at what's on the agenda for this year. In 2017, we have 19 events globally. We'll be in Foster City, February 23rd at Gilead. We'll be in Boston, April 27th at Shire. We'll be in Raritan, New Jersey at J&J on June 8th. July 13th, we'll be in North Chicago at AbbVie. August 17th, we'll be at Whippany, New Jersey at Bayer. We'll wrap things up in Durham at Parexel in November. So please come out. If you're in the region, attendance is free. So PhUSE is more than conferences and events. Okay, Scott talked about, and what we were talking about here. The CSS is really an event for working teams. You can see a number of the working teams here. They're actually more than on the slide, and I won't go through this slide. You can look at it later, but they kind of all report into the board in some capacity. This conference is, though, very unique in that it's actually a working conference with deliverables. Most conferences you go and listen to people speak. Here you come to work. So Chris Decker, at the end of the last CSS, used the Live Poll Everywhere app and got feedback, and you could see some of the feedback that he got from the CSS in March from last year. Okay, we've had great success in the past 12 years with conferences in the EU. You can see these are the 12 conferences that we've had, the annual conferences, the most recent being in Barcelona. We can see the number of delegates at each conference steadily rising. Okay, in 2017, we're going to have the US Computational Science Symposium in Silver Spring. The PhUSE, this will be the second European CSS that'll be in the UK in London, and then the annual conference will be in Edinburgh. So we have a proven track record of successful conferences globally. So we're going to build on those successes. In the next 2 weeks, we're going to be starting to slot volunteers into roles to help with our US Connect 2018, the Clinical Data Science Conference. It's going to be June 3rd through 6th in Raleigh next year. So if you'd like to help with this conference, let the PhUSE office know or contact me, and just let me know or let us know of your interests. We're looking for keynote speakers, presenters, poster sessions, people to help out with social events. It's going to be a really, really great conference, and we could sure use the help. And that's just about it, Chris. I just want to thank you all again for being PhUSE members and for participating and contributing to our mission. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Can you go ahead and hand it back to me?
Okay, let's see. I think, do I right-click on your name?
You just see my right-click, and you should see Make Presenter. Yep.
There we go.
I'll show my screen. And again, just another plug for our event coming up in just 2 months, the Computational Science Symposium. As I mentioned, we're getting up close to 100 registrants, and that usually floods in right before our early bird. We will sell out. So please sign up. And if you have anything to share from your company, a simple couple hundred-word abstract by this Friday, we'd be happy to take that in and be able to share your information. So I wanted to just let the last couple minutes. There was, I know, one question. Let me go find it here. So there was a question. I'm not sure if we can answer this yet. Now I'll let Jane and maybe Crystal chime in. The question that came from the audience was, when should the SDSP be submitted to the FDA? So guessing it's maybe not a question we can answer right now, but I can throw it out there. And Jane or Crystal, is there maybe just, an answer, or the answer is that we're not sure yet? When should the SDSP be submitted to the FDA?
Jane can probably answer this question, but I could also pull up the information in the TCG if you wanted me to share my screen. I have it ready, or Jane can answer.
Well, and I don't know if I can answer, but I may ask a question around that too, since this is still new to me, is that once we get all our comments talked through with my team and then going through what FDA comments are, it's the process. So Chris, maybe you might be able to answer this as we put it all together. Now we have a deliverable that we want to say this is it. Does it have to go back to FDA for final review? I don't know.
Well, sure,
so I think that's...
You understand my question?
I'm not sure I do. So when you say the final deliverable, are you referring to the final SDSP?
Right. So out on the PhUSE Wiki, we have a final version of the SDRG that is sitting out there for people to use. It's when we make this an official version like 1.0, is that after my team goes through the comments, deciding whether we're going to make changes or not.
So we'll do that, Jane, and that's part of our process. I think that the steering committee has right now. We'll have the version 1.0. I think I'd lean over to Crystal in terms of, once we have that all completed, what is the cycle or process by which the FDA will take that and start accepting it and referencing it?
Right. So that would be after we're done with our review, and I mean, you can submit them right now. But we
have
to
update the
TCG to make a more forceful recommendation after we've reviewed it. I actually thought the question was about when a sponsor should submit an SDSP to FDA as part of an application.
Okay.
Yes, good point.
Well,
good point. There's two different questions to be taken either way. Good point, Crystal.
Well, it's in the technical conformance guide, saying before end of phase 2, and then if it's part of an IND, it should be part of the general investigational plan, which it will be. Otherwise, it's a standalone document. And from my experience within Lilly, we have submitted them as standalone documents already, way before an end of phase 2, back when we're still in the early stages of the compound, which I think is the intention of submitting a plan. It's a living document. It will continually be updated as new studies are added, new studies are planned or completed. I don't know if that answers the question or not.
Yeah, that's what the TCG says. There's one addition. It says that the updates to the SDSP do not need to be communicated to FDA each time a new study is started.
Right, and it will be part of a submission. It will be part of an ETCD, and I know my team's talked about where that goes. I just have to go back and look to see what we had discussed. So from that aspect, you can submit it now, and people have. But I guess my question that I originally had was, after my group goes through and reviews all the comments.
We'll work on that. Yeah,
okay.
Jane, we'll work on that with the steering committee to make sure we have that process in place. So.
Okay, but it is available now for use.
Yep. Okay, so with that, for whoever or people that asked that, if you have additional questions, please follow up with Jane and myself as well, and we'll make sure we're pointing in the right direction. Also, if you come to the event in March, we'll be talking about this and can ask questions there as well. So I didn't have any more questions on here, so I just wanted to wrap it up. I wanted to thank our speakers today. I hope everybody's had a wonderful start to 2017, and I hope to see everyone in a couple months at the Computational Science Symposium. So have a great day.
Thanks, Chris. You too.
Thanks, Chris.